Thank you very much. Raymond James, as many of you know, handles equity research on a lot of areas, and as their clean tech analyst since 2006, I have definitely seen the cycles in solar, and I can tell you that in the grand scheme of things, an extra 10 cents a watt is not going to be particularly transformative for the U.S. solar market. So if we go to my slide number 2, where I show the installation volumes. So if we had this conversation a month ago, and somebody said, "Well, there is not going to be any 201 tariff. What's your prediction for installation volumes?" I would tell you that over the next 3 years, 2018, 19, and 20, the U.S. industry should install just under 50 gigawatts of PV. Interestingly enough, that is the same amount as what has been installed to date in our entire history. So in 3 years, we're going to match what we've done over the last 20, 25 years. And that number of 49 gigawatts, the way I think about that is last year, just to put this in context, according to SEIA data, the U.S. installed 12 gigs. My forecast had been, prior to the tariff, 14 this year, 16 next year, 19 in 2020. Now, the reason for the escalation, of course, is there is an ITC cliff in 2021 and afterwards that the industry is well aware of. So the closer we get to that, the more land rush there's going to be to install. But the bottom line is 49 gigawatts over a 3-year period. So now we're going to add, as was mentioned earlier, about 10 cents a watt to an average system cost. So what's going to be the impact? Well, it's obviously early days, so anything you hear from people like me or people like GTM Research is going to be a bit of a guess. My guess is an impact of 3 gigawatts over 3 years. So instead of installing 49 gigs over the next 3 years, I think the industry will end up installing about 46. And as again was mentioned earlier, virtually all of that impact is going to be felt in the utility scale segment of the market. So virtually nothing in residential rooftops, a little bit in commercial rooftops, and a more meaningful impact in utility scale. Utility scale, by the way, is about half of the total new build volume. So 20 to 25 gigs of installs over the next 3 years, just looking at utility scale. So that would drop about 3 gigs in total. Not particularly transformative, but obviously if you're in one of those 3 gigs of projects, that's not going to be all that much fun. So that's the gigawatts. Now, the corollary to that is because the industry is poised to install as much in the next 3 years as it's installed in all of our history, the market share of solar in the U.S. electricity mix is going to double between now and 2020. And I realize for most of you listening, you probably don't think of solar as a percentage of the electricity mix. It's more kind of what utilities think about. But it's interesting just to put this in perspective. Solar last year was just over 2% of U.S. electricity. 5 years ago, by the way, it was 1/4 of 1%. So it was a rounding error. It's not a rounding error anymore. It's still pretty low, 2%. And what I'm predicting is just very close to 4% in 2020. In fact, I think it would have gotten to 4% without the tariff. With the tariff and that modest impact on installations, it's going to be 3.8, 3.9%, but essentially 4% rounded. So doubling market share, it is still going to be by far the fastest growing source of electric generation in this country over the next 3 years. And if we did this analysis over the next 5 to 7 years, the conclusion would actually be the same. It would be the single fastest growing source of supply in the power market. So bottom line, not much impact. To the extent that there is impact, it's going to be felt in utility scale, and ultimately as the tariff subsides, to that 15% level, and as, of course, hardware costs continue to come down, even that impact is eventually going to subside and evaporate. Back to you.